All right. Hey, how's it going, you guys? Welcome back. We are going to be doing a little bit more streaming today as I had a class this morning. So I was streaming earlier for my personal classes, but we'll do it public and just kind of hang out for a little bit, do the obvious opening and breaking of some cards for the hobbies of interest for myself, and based on then time of interest to be able to sketch a little bit with you guys and see what we can cover. Obviously, I do have my accordion book, which I'm going to continue on. And I have a little bit of a piece I didn't get to finish last night, which I may touch upon and wrap up. So we'll see how we go. Welcome. How's it going? And let me just quiet my phone real fast, just so we don't get any notifications on it. Today, I'm going to be breaking some more basketball cards. I have another box that I want to open up. This is from the Panini brand Select, but I also have something a little bit more unique, which is going to be the Garbage Pail Kids. I noticed recently in the last year or so that they've actually come back, and this is a series 4, which they've already been doing like series 1 and beyond, and the first ones came out like what number of years ago, but this is a recent release from 2021, but it didn't come out until this year. So I saw one of these at my local card shop, and I used to have these when I was a kid, and I did actually enjoy the movie as well too. Oddly enough, I actually watched the review on it yesterday, um, as they were talking about it, and it kind of reminded me of like, oh, I kind of forgot about Garbage Pail Kids. And when I went to the local shop, lo and behold, there they were sitting on the shelf, just this one box. So I grabbed it. So I might open up a few of those packs later on, as I do some of the basketball ones as well too. I have some cards that I have here already kind of lined up for grading. I'm going to be sending these into a PSA and grade these out as well too. So grading them, we'll put them in a certain case, and it also then gives it a higher value and more collectability. So PSA, this card grading company. So I'm going to be sending a few of these ones. This one is actually the one I opened up and pulled not too long ago. And so this thing was pretty special little card. This is a rookie named Jalen Green from the Houston Rockets. This is a pink prism, which they call a disco or the fast break card. And it's autographed, and it's 14 of 20, so it's numbered as well too. And these cards graded kind of go for quite a bit of money. So I don't plan to sell it. I plan to keep it. I mostly keep these for a collection of my own. And these are the cards I'm planning to also grade in the future. Coming up, I already put the orders in. I have to send them in now. So this is some of the Blazer players. I got a LeBron, Fireworks, Luca, a nice gold, Terrence Davis, but this is a low number card, 3 of 20. And I've been breaking out some 90s cards as well too. So I have an old Shaq electrified. I have a nice gold hollow jaw, and then a nice electrified Jordan. So these cards I'm going to be sending them in. And we'll see what we get from those. And when I send them in and get them back, we'll see what the grading is. Now, as I'm opening cards and stuff like that and talking, we can, you can ask questions about anything you want to. Today I might, do some sketching a little bit later on, but I just want to just chat, hang out, open some cards with you guys. Let me open this up real quickly first, and we'll take a look at some of the questions. If I missed them because of the feed and the stream, I apologize. You can ask it again later on. And again, welcome everyone who's hanging out right now. You're about to fly back to Seattle. Have a safe flight, Bread Pirate. I fly back to Portland, Oregon, later at the end of this year in December. So my family's up in the Northwest as well too, up in Oregon. So I usually visit there once a year. I was there last year during December of 2021. I didn't go back there in 2020. I went there in 2021 and I got COVID. So I visited family, and then I ended up getting COVID. I couldn't go anywhere. I was quarantining myself, and so I spent my vacation quarantining out. And I flew back. I got over it pretty quickly. I had no symptoms. I was asymptomatic with COVID, so I didn't even know until I got tested, and somebody told me, like, hey, you were part of the group here that I was at a graduation, and they're having family members testing positive because they were feeling the effects. And they told me because, I was a part of it, you might want to go get tested, and I tested positive, and I had no idea. And then I got over it in like 3 days. And I tested again and it went away. with the PCR test. So I'm sure the booster helped tremendously, but I felt no symptoms at all. Since then of last year to this year, I don't seem to have come down with anything. No residual effects, nothing like that. And I've been to a bunch of conventions and cons, so I'm amazed I didn't get sick again because I was around thousands of people. But thankfully, nothing happened. I'm hoping I don't contract it again if I fly up to Portland. So that will be bad luck. This will be really quick. This particular opening on these basketball cards. There's only 4 packs, and each pack only has 6 cards. So this wasn't a cheap one. This one has the potential to find some rookie autographs, some interesting exclusive holograms. So we'll see what we get out of this one. I just opened up one of those earlier yesterday for myself, and I pulled this one. The player is, whatever, Christian Wood. But it's a nice green, but this is also a very low number card. This is 1 of 5. 1 of 5. So I'll probably still grade this one. I got one of a rookie, Josh Giddey, and then a nice base Evan Mobley rookie card. So those are from yesterday. I'm going to feel these cards out a little bit, just feeling the thickness, if there's any. These ones are thinner. So we'll just start in order that way. In the meantime, as I'm hanging out, you guys can definitely ask questions. Question from Azir is, I have trouble drawing realistic portraits. How can I improve myself in this regard? Well, probably doing a lot of studies of referencing, right? I mean, nothing about drawing portraits. I'm talking about drawing things like animals to vehicles to whatever the case is, especially if you don't draw it realistically. I mean, what better thing to look at than the reality of the world, right? So I would very much start based on referencing and also even a lot of things like referencing photographs, of your own, going on location to places. If you have a location for things like workshops, drawing figures and stuff like this, I would even go to that kind of stuff as well too. The more you expose yourself to the world and reality, you see how light reacts to physical forms. There's no other way. But then from that, of course, just simply looking at the thing won't really help you. So obviously the techniques and methods of building construction of forms, understanding value constructions, to apply into the mediums that you're using, whether it's digital, analog, traditional mediums, whatever the case is. So, of course, if that's your focus, if you want to create realistic portraiture, which for me, I'm not a big fan of, not to say it's something that people can't be successful in. I myself don't want to just only do photorealistic stuff. I don't mind doing it as a study once in a while, but that's not my main interest, right? A lot of my stuff I tend to do is a lot of kind of interpretations, stylistic approaches to a degree. I have a nice little fast break card in there. We'll see what that is. Hopefully it's numbered. And again, this is supposed to be hopefully giving us something nice, but I might not get anything at all. We'll see. Eddie's asking, do you have any collectible cards of billiards, pool players? No, I don't. I don't even think they make those, do they? Pool player trading cards? But then again, there's trading cards for anything. So I would not be surprised if there are trading cards for certain people. There was this one Asian woman who was a billiards player that I used to watch in the 2000s. I think her name was the Black Widow. And I remember her being really good. But she also presented herself kind of like almost like a superhero. Not in the sense that she had a costume on, but she had a very much a persona, And it was kind of cool, especially when athletes or sports players or any sort of people that have skill have a sense of not ego, but definitely a style, I guess, right? And that could be in anything. It could be pool, it could be bowling for all I care, right? This is a nice rookie card of Herbert Jones. This one's actually a nice one to have. So that is a nice one. So I've been collecting anything based on the Blazers because I'm following this team the most. And this is a base card also. But that one I also will secure. Centering is all right. So that's the Christian Wood card. And that's what I had with this one. But this is a 1 of 5. It's a base rookie. Jalen. Not numbered. And a nice rookie. Okay. Keep opening. Actually, I might be opening some of the Garbage Pail Kids cards later today, too. Love is asking, do I ever think of, with a dip pen or crow quill? You're making a comic with dip pen and brush right now. I've used them quite a bit when I was a student. When I was younger, I used to use the dip pen a lot because I just thought it was fun to use. And I also assumed that's what all comic artists use also, where the the crow quill and the dip pens. Today I don't really use it as much. I still have the materials. In my toolbox over here, I have a packet with the nibs and the handles in there still. So, but I never really turned to them. I've always just gone to the fountain pens because the fountain pen is essentially the same thing, but it's more mobile. I don't have to dip it, and it's going to flow continuously, right? So a fountain pen to me is going to be equally as good in a lot of ways. Yes, that's her name, Jeanette Lee. That's unfortunate to hear, but I used to watch her. This is like, years and years ago. Base cards, base cards. Put the rookie over here. Fast break. Put this one here. A Book Knight rookie. I'm good, Barracks. Appreciate that. But other than that, I don't know any other billiards players. What fountain pens would I recommend? I think a great starting one that's relatively cheap is the Platinum brand. Platinum is the Japanese brand, Platinum. Is that right? Platinum. Yeah, N-U-M. So Platinum is the brand, Japanese, Platinum. This is the carbon ink. This is the ink that I use. But this brand makes a fountain pen called the Desktop Pen. Platinum Desktop Pen. It's about $8 on Amazon. And that pen draws really well. You can buy a converter for it and use this ink also, and it works fantastically. So question here is, how much drawing per hours would you recommend as an aspiring artist per day? Well, I've got this question a lot. And as always, in terms of reply to that question, is that it doesn't really matter how many hours in a day you are drawing. It's more in the fact of, are you drawing every single day? And you could be drawing half an hour one day. You could be drawing 5 hours on another. But the idea is that you're always going to want to fluctuate and adapt to situation because you might have other priorities. You might be just tired. It's hard to kind of keep up 5, 6, 7, 8 hours daily through months and years. You will burn yourself out. So the best thing to do is obviously be consistent and draw all the time, but fluctuate those hours as much as you can, right? Give me 1 second. I'm also going to open something else up here. Sorry for the background noise you're going to hear. There's a bit of gardening going on, so I hope it doesn't interrupt us. But anyway, think of it that way, okay? Nemus, rookie. Oh, nice. So another great player that I've been following on the Blazers. This is Simons. So these two will go together. This is a Lillard and the Simons. We have a gold card in there. It's a rookie. Right there. I don't know what that is, but we'll see. Zaire, rookie. Put those there. That's our first fast break. Moses Moody. Just kind of curious what this is. Corey Kispert. So I got one of his cards also. And this one's numbered 4 of 10. I wish I was a different player. And I had him in one of the packs somewhere else. So I'm pretty sure this is going to be the single special card that we have. Still a low number. We'll see. It'd be nice if we got an autograph card. Yeah, Daniel. I would recommend that particular pen because it's probably the best entry because of the cost. Another fast break. No auto. Base card. Kevin Love. Seth Curry. Not Steph. This is our rookie. Chris Duarte. And a Kawi. Oh, nice. Giannis base. So, I'm going to wrap up a few of these real quickly. I doubt I'll get really much of anything from this one because of the player. It's a nice card in terms of the look, the color, and it's a low number. But how many people want Corey Kispert? I don't know. Again, I apologize. There's a lot of gardening noise in the background right now. They'll probably end up finishing real soon here. So if you're hearing a lot of that background noise, disregard it, please. Quick questions again. If you have a couple of tips for my younger self, what would I say? Well, in terms of that, the whole part of guidances and advice and stuff like that, I would always, try to think about what would I give to others, and let alone give to myself. And if it was that, it's going to be very much a lot of the things I discuss and talk about while I'm on live streams, which goes into the ideas of what we're even doing right now. Uh, have interests in the hobbies and the things that you like, and also give time to them. We all are always so adamant on trying to stay focused and do the work and not waste time and all that kind of stuff because, if we don't, we feel like we're not going to be able to make it. Even today, we already got a question about how many hours in a day should I draw. And the thing is like, again, there's no direct answer to that because everybody works in different ways. But back then, when I was an art center student, I used to work constantly all the same time. 7, 8 hours a day. But that's something we had to do because the classes demanded it also. But we also put it on ourselves to push that hard. Now, if I was a student and I was younger, if I was able to maybe like balance that a little bit better, would it have been nice? Sure, but I don't regret what I had done. I was working nonstop. Um, but like I said, it did work. Obviously, I can't deny that fact. The fact that I pushed every single day super hard, it did, elevate me. But I also paid for it in some other ways in terms of physical pain. I hurt my neck quite a bit. Disconnections between social groups and building stronger friendships. And I have good friends and people that I had during art center days, but it could have been better. I could have had a lot more contacts and networks I could have made while I was at school. But all I was doing was in my room working constantly. So, those are some of the things of advice I probably would have given myself to kind of just think about and alter a little bit, which is to get out of my room a bit more, right? Um, so I think, it sounds pretty basic, but it's so hard for us to even commit to that a lot of times. Because again, we feel guilty if we're not sitting and working nonstop. Um, but, sometimes you just have to hear it again over and over. So for me, like, for me to sit and just kind of relax and open basketball cards or cards in general and talk with you guys, I could be working. I have work to do. And as important as that stuff is, I find this kind of relaxing, time to just sit and just enjoy my hobbies is equally as important. You know, I'm also gonna bag this, see if this is honest. A couple of the questions I had, Stanley was asking, I have a couple of elbow and wrist pains, a lot more frequent now. Is it common for this to happen to artists? Well, I will say it can be common to have slight issues physically, as you just heard. For me, it was mostly in my neck, here, beside. So I had a lot of pain issues in the back of the neck, and even till still today, I can have um, tightness. If I sleep wrong, if I kind of pull my head a different direction, I can pull a muscle very easily. Now I strengthened it over time from working out, but when I was younger, it used to cause a lot of discomfort and a lot of pain. This opening wasn't bad. I wish there was a little bit better prism, but at least I got some base cards that were really nice. Put that aside for now. Stack these, take these rookies. I'll look through these in more detail later on. I'll just put it back in the box for now. Still, I was hoping for an autograph, but nothing there. But as I said, being an artist and having pain, it kind of goes hand in hand to a certain degree. But it shouldn't. That's the thing about this. It's unfortunate that we have to say that it can be common, but it shouldn't be, So if you're having elbow and wrist pains, if they're severely affecting your ability to draw for a certain extension amount of time, it can have long-term detrimental effects as you get older. So having discomfort and not being able to draw for hours is one thing, but eventually you might even completely lose the ability to do so, right? So taking care of yourself now is probably a better idea. How do I do certain things like that? Resting, exercising, stretching, making sure your hand, elbow, wrist are strengthened up. There's no remedy to make that go away, unless you strengthen the parts you have. And you might always retain some form of pain up to this point and beyond. But, what else are you going to do, right? Love had an extension to the question. You thought all comic artists use dip pens. Not all of them. Some of them will use felt tip pens. Some of them will use fountain pens. Some of them will also even use brush pens, right? and you're working on your portfolio for the THW in Denmark. I don't think I've been to that school. The one I've been to in Denmark was the animation workshop. The animation workshop is in Viborg, and that's the only school I know of. But I don't know what THW is. Let's see. Barracks was saying you're Brazilian. I don't understand the language very well, but I try hard to understand. Well, I'll try to speak a little bit slower because I know I speak quite fast. So I do apologize for those of you that are joining in from different countries. And English may not be your first language, but I do appreciate you being here, and do the best you can. I wish I could speak your languages, and so I could. Honestly, that's I thought about this yesterday. It's like, what kind of superpower would I want? And some people would say I want to fly or have strength, but how awesome would it be to have the ability or the power to speak in any or every language that has ever existed on this planet in time? That would be amazing. Let's see here. Who knows how to question? My question got overshadowed. I was wondering how the boot camps are going and what did you change in the course? By the way, we have a Garbage Pail Kids box here I'm going to open up. I actually bought a second pack on Amazon. These were about 80 bucks, 90 bucks. And I found this at the local card shop. And I'm a little bit hesitant to open it until I get the second box, but it should be okay. It was on Amazon. So I think I'm going to open this one. I don't know if I'll open every single pack, because I might save some so later on. But we'll see. I might feel like opening them. There's 24 packs in here, so I might only open half. If you never used to collect Garbage Pail Kids, here's a chance to see some of the art. And this would be a unique opening because of the fact that basketball is an interest you in sport for me. A lot of you guys may have no interest in basketball, so for you, it may not really matter. But here with the Garbage Pail Kids, at least we now have something of artwork we can look at as well. Um, but in terms of the boot camp classes that I'm offering, who knows? It's going pretty well. We just started this week. So the dynamic sketching class and the dynamic figure class are in boot camp format, which is only 5-week courses. My normal online class that I teach is 8 weeks. So as a 5-week course, the main changes that I made to the course is compression. I'm condensing some of the information into layers, double layers. So for example, today we did dynamic figure, and being week 1, we covered the torso and the head. Normally I would separate those two subjects. So we're combining subjects together into single weeks. So it makes it a bit more challenging for students because you have to do more work to harness that information and technique. But the amount of feedback, engagement, and also the technical information is the same as a 5-week course. So then why am I doing the 5 weeks? Two reasons of why. To bring the price down. So I want to see what it did in terms of reeling in the interest of people wanting to take classes. As a full 8-week course, my price was about $800, which is competitive and somewhat cheaper than a lot of other schools. But still, many people can't afford that. So I wanted to try out a 5-week course, making it $499, and see if there was interest for it. And it filled up eventually. But at the same time, it seemed like the general consensus was that, oh, I'm going to wait till your full class comes back. So I think I'm going to stick with that into the future. But again, we'll see how it goes. So Farouk is asking, do you know where you can buy the books, Dynamic Bible in Europe? On Liberty Street is sold out, sadly. And yeah, at this point, unfortunately, when it comes to the Dynamic Bible, it's only available still through superanius.com. The other storefront, which would have delivered internationally, would have been Stewart Ing. But Stewart Ing is also sold out, I believe. I'd have to double check. Actually, let me check real quickly and see if Stewart Ing has any. Stewart Ing Books. Stewart NG, STUARTNG Books.com normally carries my stuff, and they ship internationally all over the world, but they may be out of the Dynamic Bibles. So I'm looking at on the site right now, and they're out of stock. So they contacted me during the time of Lightbox, asked if I can get more copies to them. But unfortunately, I don't carry the stock. I don't have, books and books of them in my storage. It's being held by Superani. So unfortunately, due to the whole Kim Jong-gi thing, things have been delayed in terms of getting stuff in stock. So we have books in storage somewhere, but we have to wait until we get them out there. In terms of Europe, that's a whole other thing because the book was printed and all the copies were sent to the U.S. Super Randy will have to figure out how to actually make more copies and send it over to Europe. So unfortunately, that's not my job. I made the book. Super Randy is the publisher, and they handle those things. So if you can be patient, that'd be great. I do apologize in terms of not being able to get the book. I wish I could do more on that side of things. The second book is supposed to come out next year. I'm hoping by summer. I'm gonna get started on that actually in at the end of this year, in the beginning of next year. And so that's something I'd like to be able to get out soon. There's only 4 cards per pack here, so this again like to be really quick. These kind of Garbage Pail Kids cards are going to be a little bit different than the original 80s versions of them, because the original 80s ones were just matte, cardboard cards. I mean, cheap, crappy things, right? Some of them I think were stickers, I think at the time. But these are on chrome, so they're printed high quality. Like a lot of the basketball cards that we have right now. So there's gonna be like holograms and special editions, and in the pack, it'll even tell you what they kind of offer. I think it should say. It says here. Yeah, refractor cards, which are like hologram cards. They're 1-to-3 ratios. Different kind of colors in refractors. We have printing plates, autographs, and the printing plates are in 1 in 3,200 cards. So I have probably a very slim chance of getting one of those. Yeah, the second book will cover 3 different subjects. Most likely military vehicles, skeletal structure, and one more, maybe marine life. So the exercises will be left to the first book. So that way people will always go back and buy the first one. And I'm planning to do a total of 5 volumes of the Dynamite Bible. 5 volumes. I was hoping to release it annually, but then the pandemic happened. I have not opened Garbage Pail Kids cards in a long time. Since the 90s, probably. Guns and aircrafts, that will be in the future, Ash. Absolutely, for sure. Weapons I like to draw. Handheld weapons of like, blades and, blunted weapons to also things like firearms. Props can also be done as well, too. Everyday household item props, that kind of stuff. But that will be in the future. If anything, that'll be maybe volume 3. Rigel was asking, what's one exercise you would recommend doing every day? In terms of a physical exercise, here's our first card, Brett Vet. I like doing a lot of hand exercises, and I've shown this on camera before, but I use items like this, right? So this thing here is to help strengthen the forearm region here. So you put your arm and hand through that, and you're able to pull this direction as you compress. It fires off the muscles in here. And so as you continue to really press it, it strengthens the wrist, but also strengthens the forearm in this area. So as you also then pull it the other way around, you can then extend. As you extend, it hits the outside, the anterior and the posterior sides of the arm. And so I'm able to flex and pull this direction, that direction. It loosens and limbers the area up. And it also gives you the strength in the forearm for the grip. So grip strength comes from the forearm regions, right? Sorry, drop that. Sorry, hold on 1 second. I'm getting a quick message. Okay, let me see if there are other questions here. Got on the dynamic extension. That's for comments for other people. Did I take classes of digital art when I was learning it? Yes, absolutely. When I was at Art Center, I took classes very much on being able to use Photoshop and tablets and painting and drawing digitally, for sure. Do I collect any Magic the Gathering cards? No, I like the art for it, but I kind of wish I played the game. I don't know how to play it though, so I never got into it. At the time when I was in high school, Magic the Gathering didn't exist. We were mostly playing role-playing games. Magic the Gathering came out around the time after high school, maybe late 90s, early 2000s, I think. So some of the stuff, again, like I said, are holograms. So you can see this one, how it refracts in the light. This is a refractor then. These may be numbered, but they don't seem to be. So we'll have a base, Brett Vet. I know there are certain cards that are sought after based on certain characters. and they're kind of the more iconic ones. But the arts on these guys are pretty funny because these are the original series that have been reprinted. I was recently watching a review on the Garbage Pail Kids movie, and they're talking about the original cards and where, of course, it's a play upon the Cabbage Patch Kids, right? And so the original cards in the first series used to look just like the dolls, but they're super gruesome, obviously, right? And horrible and gory. And so I think later on, that card right there actually, I think, was sought after as, especially as a hollow. Um, they had to change it. So they changed the logo. They also changed where the dolls look more like a different kind of character. I think it still resembles them quite a bit, but but I always remember them being quite hilarious. Oh yeah, they're horrible, but they're funny as hell. Crush Jelly, Hi Rye, and obviously this is one of the more famous characters right here, the Atom Kid. What's my favorite insect? Is a question from Rustlin. I would say my favorite insect is probably going to be. Um, I have a whole number of them in terms of interests, but if there's one I could probably study and look at a lot, um, in terms of beauty, it's going to be the Pakistani cricket. So there's a cricket in the Middle East, Asia area, in China as well too, and they call it the violin cricket or the Pakistani cricket, and it lives on dunes and sand. If you look at the feet and the wing structures, it looks like an instrument. It's a beautiful insect, but it's a cricket. It's a heavy armor cricket. It doesn't fly, and they're jumpers and runners. But look up that one, the Pakistani cricket or the violin cricket. Beautiful one. Question over here from Ethan is, do you have any tips on how to apply VFX and create them with different pens and brushes? Simply, Ethan, is to problem solve the effect, the VFX, with shape language. Okay, so if you're trying to communicate, let's say, blurring effects, okay, of a fist coming in, and all you do is a bunch of lines, it's going to be a mess. There's a way to design the shape language for the effect of an action. That's the solution. What that shape is, you have to find. Got Hollywood. That's nice. And the paintings on these are actually, again, like I said, are really good. They're on holograms, so or not hologram, but silver plating, so they're kind of shiny. But a lot of the drawings on these and textures are actually really fun. Let me zoom in a bit more. So I think they're actually quite cool looking. So this was a character that's similar to this one over here, but they're named differently. So well, apparently, I guess we have variations. We have alternates. So this is 156A. This is 156B. I don't think there's any visual differences. It's just a naming difference. This is Brett and that's Warren. I don't know why they did that. Incomplete Pete. And this one's a kind of a famous one. Unzip Jack. That's cool. So these kind of cards are kind of an alignment to like the Mars Attack cards and that kind of stuff, right? Very much 80s. A little bit more gruesome, but a lot of fun. Question is, did you do any hands-on modeling, foam carving, prop making, things at Art Center when you attended, similar to card design, product design models? I did in shops for even in illustration because we had to play with materials, sculpting, that kind of thing, playing with, heavy tools, all that kind of stuff. So we used to do that as an earlier fundamental. I think I missed a card now, but we didn't actually make products and stuff like that. I did take a product class, but I never actually built models. So Ashkan, that question of how many hours you think you should practice to become a pro, there is no set number of hours. You would obviously practice as much as you can in a given day. Um, but really it's about that consistency again. Are you doing it every day? Don't worry if it's like 5, 6 hours every single day. It could be 10, 20 minutes one day. It could be hours on another. Secondhand rose. That's pretty gruesome. This looks like some kind of Toy Story, toy that was kind of broken apart. It's a nice one. Trophy tray. So here's another one. Now that's a complete alternate art variant. So this is Boneyard Bill. That's Unzipped Jack. Visual difference. Kind of cool. This one's not numbered. It's just kind of a different color than yellow. Rutherford B. Hay. Oh, the shop classes, in terms of loading them. I liked it. I thought it was kind of fun. I wish we did more. Like a lot of the product design students and the transportation design students obviously did a lot of hands-on stuff. Um, I feel like illustration students missed out on that a little bit. And it's just with drawing dogs. Well, in any animal, canines, cats, fish, birds, do know that there's a archetypal structure there that can be then reapplied by manipulating proportion to plug into those individual types of animals, right? So for instance, if I can find a core archetype of a head structure of a dog or a body type, then any other kind of dog or canine, maybe even wolf, well definitely wolves, can then be drawn in a similar approach of method. So finding the primitive form construction of a any type of dog, honestly, is what you want to start with. But in terms of how to approach that, this is where then lessons and plans and techniques will show you how to like look for certain things, what kind of shape, what kind of planes, how the anatomical information can work. But don't worry so much about those specific details just yet. Think about the primitive construction of how you put it together, right? Venzer, what are these cars? This is the Garbage Pail Kids. If you've never seen the Garbage Pail Kids, this is 1980s. I don't know how old you are, but in the 80s we had these great, fantastic cars called Garbage Pail Kids, and they were basically a twisted um, poke and jab at the Cabbage Pail Kids. So Tops, the company, used to make these back in 1984, 85, and they started making series of them. And they brought them back in the last, I would say, 5, 6 years. And so I grew up with them as a kid. So we used to collect these as horrible as they are. They used to be much worse. They're kind of more just like kind of gimmicky and kind of funny, but some of the early series ones were really violent, really, really violent. Turned on Tara. So this is another refractor card. So this one has a hollow on it. So this is Hollywood. No numbering. So we're looking for numbered cards and colored refractors. Kitty litter. It was always like the funniness of the names, and of course this is basically very lowbrow humor. Um, but as a kid, you found it hilarious. As an adult, I still like them because it has nostalgia attached to it. But if you grew up as a kid, in the 2000s and never really saw this stuff, you would have no idea what this stuff is. Like that. Rocky Horror. They played upon things like known brands. This is very much like a known thing for Garfield, right? And he was like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So here's our refractor color, Crystal Gale, and this is numbered, but it's a high number, so it's like 299 cards, and this is 123. So these kind of cards are a little bit more special, a bit thicker. Now we're looking for ones that are extremely rare in terms of numbering, low numbers, and also specialized characters that are very highly sought after. You have to understand, cards like this, it's a hobby for me, but for like serious collectors, these go for a ridiculous amount of money. There's some like one of ones that can go for hundreds of thousands of dollars for a card. That's pretty disgusting. Bar from Bart. But that's pretty cool too. That's how extreme they used to go back in the day. That's pretty nasty. I remember seeing one as a kid, and I wouldn't say it traumatized me, but man, it stuck with me. There was a kid that was shaving his skin off. Like, oh my god. Um, and I remember that one still. Well, Victor, if some of those original Garbage Pail Kids from like Series 1 or older are still in mint condition, they could be worth a lot of money. We have another refractor in there. Well, Jason, that's the thing too, is I actually like the movie as well. It's terrible, but in a way where it's so bad. I think for most people they would say it's just bad, but I like it because I used to watch it as a kid and I rented it from the library. as on a VHS tape. I used to watch it all the time, but it is a really bad movie. Oh man, Flat Tyler. It's the naming that makes it hilarious too. Like the images are can be pretty horrendous, but man, the names just absolutely kill. Rudy Toot, Formaldehyde. It's really good. What's my favorite drawing exercise? Well, today I don't really do drawing exercises. I just draw. When I sketch, that is my exercise, right? So a sketchbook that I have on my side, that is my kind of daily routine, you know. But for someone who's growing into their skill sets, a lot of the basics in what we do, which is the kind of exercises that have the muscle memory exercise, the lines and shapes, and creating cubes and drawing cubes is a huge thing. I would draw a lot of boxes if I were you. There's another traveling Cheris, but that one. So yeah, this is a different name, but that's a hollow. It's a base. Basket Casey. Igloo. So this one's Crystal Gale. This one's Igloo. And Kaiju. That's a pretty cool one. These are just fun just to collect. I would put them in a folder. Again, like I said, just nostalgia is a part of it. So why cubes? Is a question from Daniel. And when we say boxes, we can say boxes are two-dimensional. But if I said cubes, we're thinking three-dimensional form. I would recommend more of cubes. So why? It's a form in which it's really hard to consistently get accurate. Because you have to be able to perceive three-dimensional form. You can easily apply perspective into it too. But it's also a building block for many things that we can construct in observation. So the cube is a highly resourceful tool set in use in being able to draw and sketch many things. Lips. Gordon. Oh man. Blair. Ventriloquist. Just two more packs. I'm not opening all of them. This is only half inside the box that I have. I'll do the other half maybe next time. If you're asking the game, there is no game. The name, though, is the Garbage Pail Kids. There's another refractor in there. Nothing too special just yet. Put the refractor here. Foxy Francis. It's a pretty horrible painting. But this artist was using some interesting material combinations. A lot of this stuff actually looks like colored pencil. Maybe some wet mediums of paint combination. Hunter. Oh man, that's pretty gruesome. Last pack. Well, Van's just trying to draw an airplane. A Skyraider is a really interesting looking airplane. The F4 Phantom is a classic. We have a special card in here. This is a yellow refractor. Hopefully it's something unique and good. We'll see. We got something there. Teddy bear. I don't see a number on it. Oh, here it is. 133 to 275. Not bad. Get another base metal mat. Cool. So those are some of the Garbage Pail Kids. I want to put some of these in sleeves. What I like about these cards is the printing looks nice, but I do like how centered these are too. Typically in card printing, the border you'll see on the centering of it is like all shifted like crazy. So the quality is a little bit stronger on these Garbage Pail Kids compared to a lot of other kind of sports cards and stuff like that. Especially the old ones. The old ones are terrible. I doubt these are really any of high value, but still nice collectibles. We're going to bust out the sketchbook here in just a moment and do a little bit of sketching. Who knows? I think this might give me some inspiration. Not to say I'm going to draw Garbage Pail Kids, but there's something here that I can pull from for sure. Like this kind of stuff. Dissections, separations. That's an interesting concept for drawing and sketching. Because you get to get a sense of the inside areas. Kakva, appreciate that. Thank you. I know the Proco video made its round and did good for me in terms of making sure people can kind of get a sense of what I do. Let's put these refractors here for now. We don't need to sleeve them for the moment. And we'll put these away. We'll put those cards in here if anything else. And I'll research them a bit more later on to see just generally highly sought after cards. Excuse me as I throw away the trash. So, let's see here. We can keep chatting a little bit. I'll just sketch a little bit more here now. Got my two, these are Tombow pens I'm going to be using. These Tombow pens are Fudenosuke style Fude pens, which are used for calligraphy. Nice pens. And I was finishing this accordion book. Let me just zoom out a little bit. This is the beginning of it. This is a fresh new one. It's only had it for maybe a month or two. I've been filling it. And you start to see the extension of it all the way through in terms of how it looks. So I'm at this point, and I got to this last shot, but I never got to finish this guy here, which was just another addition to this dragon that we were doing. I don't know if I'm going to touch upon it right now. Maybe I'll do this on my own time. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to flip the sketchbook. Start on this side. So we have now the other end that to fill up. So I have one side filled up, pretty much. I'm going to go to the other side, which is blank. So this is where I take these accordion books and I fill both ends up. So in these Tombow pens, one is a soft tip, the black one. The blue one over here is a hard tip. So I'm going to use the hard tip because it gives me a finer line. We'll keep it shut like this. I have no idea what I'm going to sketch. The stuff I just saw from the Garbage Pail Kids was a good inspiration, honestly. Not to say I want to see, you know, gross looking kids drawn in here. But I like the ideas of some of the concepts. Again, like the one that was the kid unzipping himself. Separations, dissecting things are always really, really fun to me. It's an exercise that we used to do in dynamic sketching, dissections. We would take an abstracted form and we would cut it in half and show the interior things or details. So it's something you'll see many other artists in the Superani have done before too. This idea of separation, dissection. It's a pretty common theme in a lot of cases. So I might play with that a little bit, but maybe in a slightly different way. Maybe not organic either. I don't know just yet. I like the idea of something encased within something else. Let me see if there's any other questions here, though. Origami was asking, what are your thoughts on drawing on not flat surfaces, for example, sculpted page of arches, watercolor paper? I mean, that's your preference at that point, right? I prefer flat surfaces, but if you're talking about, I mean, arches watercolor paper is great, but a sculpted page, I'm not sure what that means. You know, I'm talking about a three-dimensional form with paper that you would draw on top of. Sounds interesting. Lighting on a character, maybe. We'll draw whatever we will, and we'll put lighting on it to a certain degree. This is not going to be educational in some way, because it's not a class. This is just for us to sketch and draw and hang out. But if I draw a character type and I put lighting on it, you'll see how I approach it. A tank. Let's try this. Let's take a vehicle of a tank. And we'll also separate it. And we'll put something inside of it. Let's see what happens with that. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do, I'm going to draw one half in section over here. another half a section over there. I'm going to separate the turret going up this direction. So if anything, what I'm going to do is I will start off by establishing the turret, and I'll go down to the bottom. Now I'm just going to make this tank up. It's not based on any specific model. Let me zoom in a bit more. No pun in this one. Kind of want to show some of the texturing, the rough edges of some of the materials. It'll look a bit vintage. I like more vintage designs of military vehicles and weapons. But as I said, I'm going to create my own design of a shape. This will be the underside of the turret. And we'll go into some of the darks and details in just a moment, but let's get this cannon coming out here, this direction. It's going to be wrapped in like a material. And then we have the cannon coming out. Vanzer was asking, do I like the metal slug designs? Absolutely. The tank on that thing is awesome. I think also another parallel to that one is I really enjoy Masamune Shiro's. The, oh my gosh, Tank Police one. There's a certain name for it. I literally just had it in my head and it disappeared. Um, Damn it, I'll think of it. If anybody remembers it, let me know. But it's the one that Masamune Shiro did. The guy who did Appleseed and not Appleseed, but there's a different one. It's called the Tank Police, but there's a name for it. It's literally like on the tip of my tongue. Ugh, that's gonna bother me now. Let's see. Kafka asking, I've been exploring your. Oops, sorry, this is kind of off frame. I've been exploring your art, and then I noticed that you draw a lot of things. But do you have a focus for drawing a type of theme? Fantasy, MMORPG, video game characters, or a little bit of everything? Everything. I enjoy drawing all stuff. When I was younger, I primarily focused on characters and creatures. Dominion, thank you, Vanzer. Dominion Tank Police. He has some awesome tank designs in that one. And we are going to put a dude floating in the air who would be sitting at the commander's chair. Inside the turret. And we'll put the body down over here. But I'm also going to split this so the body comes down this direction. Again, we're going to play with the proportion of this tank, making it feel a little bit fun. put the other half on this side. Just to mark it. So I just wanted to establish a couple things first, then I can keep chatting. So Stanley's asking, do I have a particular tank in mind while I'm drawing this one? Well, this particular turret right here, it's not exact, but the shape and design of this piece, on especially that edge right there, some of these details, I am pulling from a specific tank, and it's the Sheridan tank, which I think was being used during the 1960s or 70s, maybe even earlier. But the Sheridan tank was a tank that was actually airdropped during war, and it didn't shoot actual rounds of the ballistics as you have in tanks, but actually shot missiles, I think. But the Sheridan tank was a pretty cool looking tank. So Joseph, you're saying you left school to pursue an art career in art. It's been a struggle since, I can imagine. Any advice on changing my relationship to art from something I do to pursue a career versus a love of the craft? Um, I mean, they should go hand in hand because the love of a craft or something can produce the opportunities to yield it into some form of career. Now, if we think of career as a traditional sense, are you talking about being in sort of a company and being a part of a corporate nature and developing your skill set to gain the levels in your ladder of status? Maybe, but for some other people, the career is also focused on their own endeavors. Creating your own products, making your own things, making your art something that you use that you enjoy making every day, but it's also a living, right? Now, that's not so easy to produce and easy to establish in terms of a successful monetary gain, but those kind of things can hopefully be slowly built up in terms of quality, but also return, and hopefully based on interest within customers and a following within that. And it won't be quick. After a single year of doing that, it won't have any sort of return to it, but it might take years upon years to do it. But if you're only just starting your pursuit towards your education in art, then it's still too soon to think about it, and it's going to be a continuous struggle. So that means if you have to like find other kind of jobs to support you financially to keep doing the art you got to do, if you don't have outside help, I mean that's what it's going to call for, right? So then if you then take the time afterwards to do evening time after work of sketching and drawing and the hours you can, you will do so. And it will take you longer to get the kind of work and the actual career within an art job. But what else are you going to do, right? Major Tom was asking, how do you self motivate to work on your drawing in between the 9 to 5? Well, for me, I used to have a 9 to 5, but it was related in art, right? I was designing characters and things for video games for, I've been doing that for over 7 years. So after I would, be in a office job of working on, a game, you might think, but that's still creative. You're drawing, you're designing, you're creating things, and you're doing the thing that you were trained to do. Um, and isn't that fun? It is, but like anything else, eventually it starts to grind. you know Even in an art career like that, eventually it becomes just another job a lot of the times. So as I get home from work, and I'm working at a studio of a game company, and I come home, uh, do I draw more? Back then, not as much. I didn't. I had my office job working at a studio. I'd come home and I would just do whatever. Watch movies, play games, go out with friends. I would go to the gym. There really wasn't much else I would go for, but I wasn't really making my own stuff. A lot of the times. But eventually, I had to kind of alter that because of the fact that I had many opportunities at that point, later actually, where I was able to do things like conventions and shows and expos. And all of a sudden, I was required to be able to produce these kind of actual things, right? So then at home after my work, I had to sit and actually do them because if I didn't have the products to be able to get out there and do these conventions and shows. But to find the motivation behind it, first and foremost, it just came because of the fact that I had to just do it. I had a deadline. A deadline really does help, right? Now, a deadline can be scary because now you're counting on the clock, to finish something and you got to get it done and to a certain level of quality, and you feel like then it's like another job at that point, and it kind of eventually becomes that way, right? But if you're just kind of doing it on your own, you're not making a product. There's no deadline. This situation is more based on then the interests, things that you just like. It could be based on studies of characters and brands that you also have studied from other artists, or it could be you creating your own iterations of them. Generate your own products that are not going to be sold, but you just want to make them like little comics and storylines or prints. Um, I think a goal of some sort of like visual, not just exercise, but also some kind of visual theme and projects that you want to work on. That kind of a continuation of designs that go into it or pieces is also smart, so that way you can kind of also plan out like, hey, this particular week I want to work on multiple these kind of characters. You could do so, right? We're going to show the interior of this tank being lifted away as also. And this is basically the front end of it. Let's see, a couple of the questions I may have missed. Yeah, Benji, you know a lot about tanks. Um, Louise was saying, I really like drawing, but I never had art drawing classes at school. I studied drawing from videos and books. Should I consider trying to graduate, even never had studied art? Well, I mean, it depends on what you want to do, right? You like drawing, but you've never taken classes on it at school. You study from videos, but should you consider trying to graduate even never had studied art? Well, if you're in an art school, I mean, you would graduate to complete those studies. If you're trying to graduate that is not touching upon your interests of art, should you graduate? Again, it depends on if it's a high school or university. If it's a university that's focusing on a career, then maybe you can kind of direct your attention to an area of focus educationally, right? Within a college format that hits closer to what you want to go for. So it's if a change of major, a change of a location of a school, so then maybe you don't graduate, right? And let's say you are actually even at an art college. Should I even graduate at that point? It's all dependent upon how much interest you have. Some people will see it to the end. Others can gain as much information of technique they could, maybe it's financially, or because they have enough, they can build a portfolio and leave and not graduate. So there's many ways to approach this. There's no one route, obviously, right? But it's all very much situational, depending on your current situation, right? Let's see. Madka is asking, is it a good way to learn rendering by studying movie scenes? Well, it can be, based on a singular subject or a scene or a shot. If you're talking about rendering, you're talking about decapturing a light, right, and value. So value studies of film can be very helpful. But if you're just learning, just starting, I probably would start with singular subjects, like objects of still life. It could be, the typical art thing we've done, right? Fruits and still life objects of props. It could become, animals. It could be people at that point. You can start to graduate towards even much more complex objects. But understanding the fundamentals of controlling light and value, start with something a bit simple if you can. We're making up some kind of crazy sci-fi tank, which I split down here. You know what I wanted to do? What I was imagining? We talked about dissection, but I was thinking about those images if you have books where it will show you a vehicle and they will take sections off of it, and you're able to draw. You can see the interior details of things. That's kind of what I was imagining here too, but I'm just making it up. So imagine if there was like a guy sitting in here. And this is not like a traditional tank of any kind. I'm just making up the information. So because of the fact that it's my own creation, I can do whatever I want. Now, if I was trying to like actually draw a specific tank, are there certain tanks I can draw from memory? There are. I know how to draw a Sherman tank pretty well from memory. I can draw you an M5 Stewart pretty well from memory. An M60 Patton tank I can draw from memory pretty well. But there are certain tanks I don't know in terms of details, so I would turn to the referencing of that stuff. We'll go into the rest of the details in a moment. Yeah, I have a lot of stuff in the background. What's a good book for textures and rendering? I don't have a recommendation for you, Zinistrom. In terms of like actual books regarding that, we never really used books back in Art Center days. We would use still life. We'd look at the actual things, and the instructor would give us technique and lessons within it. But we really get no books on it. I guess one, if it was based on color and light, would be James Gurney's books. James Gurney, who is the artist from Danotopia, has a lot of series of books on like color and lighting, which I've never really used, but they seem really good. And of course, I have full confidence to say James Gurney is one of the best, right? Just some interior stuff in here. I'm just kind of making up interior details, mechanics, panels. Just having fun sketching an armored vehicle of my own creation. We're going to take the soft pen in just a moment and push in some darks. Let's see, other questions. Nano, thanks for the support of actually getting the Dynamic Bible. I know it's kind of hard to get right now, so I do appreciate those that were able to get it and also use it to your benefit. As I've said in the past, new books will be coming out into the future. So the second volume, hopefully next year in the summer. Question from you though is where do you see the future of AI art in the world, and do you feel hopeful or do you have any concerns? There's a lot of hit back when it comes to stuff like this, and certainly, of course, whatever my opinion is, you don't have to listen to it because it doesn't matter, right? Whatever I say doesn't matter because I don't control what happens with AI art and how it affects our world of industry. It's going to happen. It's just going to happen. And all you got to do is obviously adapt to it or completely ignore it or use it in some way. You can bitch about it and you can, argue it as much as you want to, but you have no influence to what's going to happen. You can say, well, if we all collectively get together as a community, we can control how this is going to be used responsibly. You could, and I'm sure we'll have some sort of influence, but once it's out there, yes, there will hopefully be a majority that will use it responsibly in a way it's supposed to be meaningful to our world of art. But you can't control people. People are going to be using it the way they want to in some ways, right? And that's in any tool that we have as hardware. You can abuse it, or you can use it to create amazing things. The big argument, of course, is this whole copyright situation, right? I've talked about AI art already before in live streams. Um, the idea that for me, I don't feel scared by AI art in terms of what I do, right? But this is just talking about myself. I'm not talking about other artists. Yes, other artists could suffer from the advent of AI art and having their work being stolen, which takes away their job opportunities. Could that happen for people that actually generate painting pieces of prints that they sell and their main job focusing is generating that kind of work? Into the future, it could be the case. Is it going to happen right now? Probably not right now exactly, but I'm sure it's starting in that situation. Now, again, those are people that maybe generate more of those kinds of pieces that feel like digital painted art or even analog painted art because the AI can replicate that. For the things that I do, I'm not really overly concerned by it because in the current level of technology, in terms of what AI art can do, which is just a program controlled by a person inputting the information they need to pull it from, um, in terms of drawing, it doesn't really do a good job of that. Right? It can replicate certain feel, but it's not very clear. It's very mushy, is what it is, right? But it's getting better, much, much better, faster at a rate in which you can't even predict. However, again, at the same time, I'm not concerned by it because even if the AI art is supposed to, it can, right, as a program, generate pieces of work that is using, sources of information from the internet, which is going to use everything from photographs, images, drawings, paintings, historically current, modern day, everything that's connected to it, right? Um, that it will be able to produce, let's say, potentially of drawings that are equal in terms of its visual nuance, still controlled by the user behind it, right? So I talk about responsibility within this. But regardless of all that, right? Because even if it can generate the actual work that's similar to this right here, I'm not concerned because it's always dictated by the person wanting to input information to generate some sort of visual image. But the AI art can only pull from what's already been created or what already exists. So it's only going to always do some kind of amalgamation and mixture of those things. It will never be able to generate something new unless we're talking about actual AI, right? Where it can imagine and create and visualize those things, where the human being is also doing a mixture of those things. I myself am using memory of stuff that I've seen in the past from visual photographs and video games, but also in real life. And I then pull from those elements and amalgamate them. But I can still use creativity to push and manipulate in different ways, or even hybrid stuff together based on what my intentions or interests are. Um, so I can generate an image here right now that does not exist anywhere else online. It can feel similar. There can be overlaps and a lot of parallels, but no other image or drawing exists in this way. So then the big problem of copywriting, right? Images are being stolen online and taken away, which is not being credited or monetized to be given to the people who created them in the first place. Uh, and I have no other, kind of opinions about that because that is what is happening, right? The program is going into these, connected visual images and pulling from them the way it wants to and just putting it all together. And so, could it be a problem in the future where it can generate a piece where it's using other people's work and benefiting from it? I mean, sure. Would it completely take away that job from that person? I don't know. I mean, if that person, whether they're established or someone who's just coming up, right, and is able to have a distinctive, let's say, application to their work, and let's say you have a voice in your style. We're talking about style sets, and the stuff that we're talking about right now doesn't really apply as much into the industry of animation, games, film, that kind of stuff. Because we're talking about that's production work. None of that stuff is being sold. That's just production pipeline to generate a product like a game or a movie. But if we're talking about an artist who has their own visual look and styling that produces prints that they sell, that's really kind of some of the issues, right? But again, you're not going to be able to control this. It's going to continue going down that route, and so some of those people are very much concerned and scared, and they want to shut this thing down. But that's all I'm saying is that you're not going to be able to shut it down. So what do those artists who are established or even just beginning need to do? Continue to either adapt and keep focusing on down to what they're doing, right? But I understand, regardless of what I'm saying, there's a lot of hit back by saying, well, this and this and this and this. And you're not thinking of that. You're not thinking of this. And I can't think of everything. I'm just answering a question based on someone's interest, based on my own personal opinion with the limited information that I have. So I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm not saying there should be AI art or there shouldn't be. I'm just saying this is the current situation, what's going on, and we can just be observant of it. And I think as long as you're relatively responsible to how we use those things, then I think there could be definite positives behind it. Again, every bit of technology that we've used in the past, from Photoshop to 3D modeling to photo bashing techniques of using those programs, yeah, there's always opinions and a lot of concerns and criticisms behind them, but they're now standard things. We use them all the time. Um, I can't think of any sort of digital hardware or digital software of things in the past that may have had controversy that didn't necessarily help us in some way, right? Um, but it's just so hard to predict. We don't know what's going to happen from it. So of course there's a lot of fear behind it. But going back to this idea of the whole copyright stuff. I mean, what do you do with that? Do we have to go in there and copyright every single bit of work that we have, and so it's untouchable? How does someone who's young going to do this? Do they even have the money to pay for that licensing, right? Or copywriting, or what do they do? Um, I doubt it. And so there are some, unfortunately, that will suffer. That is the reality of the way this is going to work. Um, there are some that will gain, and there will be some that will suffer, and that is also the reality of the world. It's like the whole same thing with the NFT stuff, right? Some people gained, some people suffered, and there was this whole elitism that came into it, and then people felt like they were left out. And there's a lot of controversy that goes back and forth there, and now it's kind of dying. NFTs are kind of old school, old news now. Nobody wants to do it, but that's just how things kind of go, right? They go up and down like crazy. Um, I don't know. Going back to it again, I'm not really concerned about it. Should young people who are not established be concerned? I mean, I don't see why. Again, because again, I'm trying to imagine if I was in those shoes. If I started over, right? If I was young today, coming out of high school, went to a college, and I was trying to look for work, would I be concerned about AI? Again, I don't think I would because I am more interested in a certain industry, right? into the industry of design and process. AI art could be used to help me explore ideas, but I wouldn't ever use it to monetize to make money off of it. I would use it to explore my fundamental skills. But if I was to eventually go the route of like producing my own work, I mean, I wouldn't even be using AI art. I would be generating my own pieces, analog most of the times, even maybe digital here and there. Um, and I wouldn't be concerned about the competition of AI art because the competition of other people is equally the same, right? If I painted and drew something on digital or analog, there's somebody else out there that's going to be equally as good, if not better, in a similar kind of style set. So that's all it is. It's more competition. Um, but that's just the reality of the way the world works, right? So yeah. Anyways, that's enough about the AI stuff. I guess I'm not really even that plugged into it. I never really use it. I have a student that used it actually for his project and homework, and he asked like, "Hey, do you mind if I actually even test it and use this program to generate some visual images and for educational purposes?" I said, "Sure, absolutely, use it." So we generated a couple of studies, paintings of an environment within a certain style set, and used those, but he painted over them completely, right? So the leftover remaining of the AI piece no longer existed. He used it as a framework to be able to use to help move forward for the composition or the color or the lighting, to then generate his own painting from there. But how is that any different than photo bashing or using a reference of a photograph and copying from it, right? Doing the same thing, right? But as I said, I think the big controversy is the irresponsible people that are taking credit by not really even affecting on it. They just make the work, post it up, and say this is mine. There's a lot of skewed opinions and mentalities behind this kind of stuff. Is a little bit concerning. More of that. I'm more concerned about the mentality of people, the mindset of individuals, not so much the program or the computer. So I missed a bunch of questions. John was asking, curious on your thoughts to avoid crude clumping with leaves on trees from reference. Uh, to avoid the crude clumping of leaf structures on trees without having to draw all of the leaves individually. I suspect the solution lies in better design of the silhouette. In the shape language, but also internally, John. Externally and internally. Okay? You got to be able to indicate some of those leaves as well, too. So that is also set by scale. The scaling becomes a big issue as well, too. But it's difficult and challenging because you're trying to balance many things. When it comes to drawing very noisy objects like trees with leaves, but it starts off with the silhouette, with the shape language, and then you mirror that internally. But you got to be able to separate shadow and light. But it's got to follow volumetric rules. So we use similar rule sets of rendering of things like light and shadow, but form shadows and cast shadows, and then of course indicating small things in between to fill in the gaps, but to communicate what those leaves are, right? But it's not determined upon situation. If a close study of the trees in front of you, you would actually go into those details. But the tree's far away, it's just a silhouette, right? Star's asking, do you think it's possible to reach a high level of skill with your left hand in drawing if your right hand is unusable with enough practice? Yes. Yes, I do believe that. Evolution's asking, do you prefer the hard or soft tip Tombow pen? This is a hard tip. I use this one first. I'm sorry, no. This is the hard tip, right? Yeah, this is the hard tip. I use this one first. I use a soft tip for these kind of darks. It's a bit more malleable, fills in some of the shadow shapes better. Another question for Evolution is, can I do a quick flip through the sketchbook? Once we finish this, I will do so. Any news on the possibility of starting that podcast with your friends? It's already started, Jason. We already had a couple other recordings that we did. I'm trying to finish out the intro. We want to do one more session maybe tomorrow, and then I'm going to start to create a library of videos and start uploading them. I think as soon as maybe even next week, Jason. Have I tried those 10 color in one ballpoint pens when I was a kid? Uh, not so much now. I've seen some people illustrate beautiful studies using those kind of multicolored ballpoint pens, but I don't use it. Where can you find the podcast? On YouTube. It's called Journey Pen. Journey Pen Podcast. There's nothing up there right now, but there is a page for it, and it's going to be a podcast starting maybe next week. We'll see, with me and my friend Manu Carrasco, and the podcast is just about being able to talk, much like this, about everyday things. You know, things that we're doing, our schedules, what we experienced. It could be about drawing. It could be also about other stuff. It could be about things that we have interests in. We'll also invite guests as well too. Art style, because my favorite art style to draw in, I don't really have one. I would say the styling that I have right now is curated over the many years of looking at other stylists, but I have a number of people that I've looked at over the many years, right? So I can't pinpoint just one person. If there was one off the top of my head, I would say I really enjoy looking at Katsuya Terada's work, but also that then goes into Mobius. A Beckles was asking, and Falls was saying go lefty, so I'll do a little left hand drawing here now, which requires a little bit more attention and focus. To mark, I can't move the same way. But all we're doing is filling the dark, so the left is not as difficult to do when I do this. But it requires so much more concentration, and it's hard for me to talk when I use my left hand because it's not built in. There's no muscle memory there. But sometimes what happens is that when you go the opposite hand, you start to tighten up. But as soon as you realize that, you just gotta loosen the grip a little bit. As you loosen the grip, short strokes to long strokes, but you kind of go into the idea of just where do you want certain information. Just kind of knock it in. Let's do a little bit of hatching in these areas. The texture on the top of the surface. We've already done a lot of the construction, but I'll still place in some additional lines of details, maybe around the tracks, so there's a bit more information there. But as you can see, I can't really make the marks that I want. But it's still fun. But what happens over time is that my hand starts to ache. I don't have the hand endurance to be able to hold the pen and to move the way I want to. You know what also happens is that my right hand gets fidgety. It's like the older brother that wants to take it over. Like, give it to me. I want to do it. You know, but being the parent, you got to kind of like let him try. So a bit clumsy. I used to spend a month drawing with my left hand during the Inktober days. So I would call that leftover, and I would draw the entire thing, whatever sketch I was doing, with my left hand. The thing I can't do is a lot of this kind of hatching motion. With my right hand, it's very easy to do this, but I can't do it with my left as easily. So all I can do is lock my finger and I have to move my entire arm around. So in enough time, if I spent another, let's say a couple years, drawing with strictly only with my left hand, I'm pretty sure I can get the enough control to produce equally good enough drawings with my right. And I am not ambidextrous. Um, Apex was asking, any suggestions for when artists can make the most of a mentorship? You're interested in taking classes, fundamentals to improve my skills and seek mentors to further improve. Mentorship should come more at the end. Okay, the end of your actual educational cycle. In the beginning, it should be mostly classes. Once you go to the intermediate and advanced on the design level stuff, go to the mentorship after that. Because you want to have a mentorship that guides you when it comes to understanding where your fundamental practice applies to industry, making portfolios, developing projects. Okay. Carson, the world building book? Yeah, I have it behind me. I'll grab it. Didi's asking, are East Asian artists trained in ink primarily versus traditional Western and more? Sorry, I missed that question. Trying to understand it, Didi. East Asian artists, okay, trained in ink primarily versus traditional Western is more graphite charcoal. Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. No, there is no medium kind of what is that focus, depending on the country you're coming from. Uh, but I guess you can kind of see it that way in history, right? If you look at like in Japan and China and the ink wash kind of stuff, they're primarily using inks, right? So they don't really do a lot of like dry mediums. Where the European nations growing up, but there was a lot of ink wash there too. You know, there's a lot of wet mediums of oils and watercolor and ink wash as well too. I think it's more of the cultural aspect in terms of a lot of it coming from the trends and the styles and things that are influenced by that aspect of culture. So I think with the ink stuff, it fit towards the calligraphic styling of the the language. I think that was a big part of it. Um, I don't know if it's a material availability thing because we're talking about dry mediums of graphite and charcoal. I'm sure it was readily available, and I wouldn't say that in Asia that they wouldn't have used charcoal, but I don't know if they would have maybe mass produced it. I don't know. I don't have enough history information on that, but it's interesting, you know. But does it seem to be that way primarily, where a lot of Asian artists are using more ink? Seems to, right? Demanshi is asking Dragon Ball or Naruto for best fighting style. Dragon Ball. Um, Daryl's asking, you previously mentioned confidence as a motivation for using pen and ink, but of course, there are lots of graders that go pencil and inks. Yes, there are. Absolutely. Are there some technical reasons for using pen and ink from start to finish, or is it just personal preference if you have confidence already? It's mostly personal preference at that point, right? It could be done as training initially, but once you have enough training and confidence behind it, well, then the other tools that you use apply that same confidence. So if I use ballpoint, pencil, and pen, having all the strict, skill sets being developed with the pen initially as training, my pencil work and ballpoint work will get that much better. Now it's just personal preference of what you want to use. Dave, in terms of did I pull anything good tonight? You grabbed an Optic Blaster series. Cool. I actually grabbed the Select. This one here, the H2. What did I pull from it? Unfortunately, nothing too solid. I got this Corey Kispert, which was numbered 1 of 10, 4 of 10. couple of good rookies. Uh, Definitely a lot of fast breaks, but no autos this time around. In one of the other boxes, I got another player, Christian Wood, which is again another okay card. It's a green fast break, but this one's numbered 1 of 5. So I got a lot of low number cards, which is pretty nice. But for the box and what I paid for, I was hoping a bit more return. Pace Wilder's asking, can you talk about correcting small mistakes as you go with an ink drawing? I recently watched a video of yours where you mentioned this. You struggle to draw with ink as a mistake stand out. And that's the thing. Some of those mistakes that you're seeing standing out, only you are noticing. Most likely, a lot of the people that are viewing your work may not even notice it. So it stands out to you because you know you made the mistake because it doesn't feel right or vision doesn't look right. But people who are observing don't have that same context. So to them, it doesn't really stand out unless it's actually more of a proportional thing. Proportional mistakes are when you want to switch things and start over. But if it's like a line mistake, like these aren't perfect lines. These aren't perfect. I did it with my left hand. And so you can see them as a mistake and be like, oh, those are terrible. I don't want to show it. But most people who see the sketchbook won't ever notice it. I bet you they don't even know that I drew this part with my left hand. If I just kept drawing with my right, they won't know. Unless you told them. Unless you said, oh, don't look at this. This is really bad. Well, that's all we're going to look at, right? So the mindset change kind of has to happen there too. But then as I make a mistake then, if I don't like it visually, and it is something off on line, is there a way to fix it? Potentially. Line weights, layering information to detail, hatching techniques, shadow play, right? Contrast. That can help disguise some things. So it's possible. I'm going to go into the background here, just kind of indicate some of the shadow shapes underneath the tracks and the wheels. This is the inside area of the tank. We're just exposing the armor to show the interior. We're lifting the turret up above, playing with the idea of just being able to move things around. Let's see, a couple of the questions here. Daryl saying, oh, yep, no problem with that. Owen, 14 years old. When should I start drawing from imagination more? Now. Right now. If you have something of interesting thoughts or creative ideas or imaginations, draw it. Start right now. Most of the studies they do are from observation to broaden my visual library, but I can't really visualize clearly from my head. Well, again, if you're talking about replicating it from a memory of drawing something that you studied from observation, that will take a lot of training. But if you look at something, let's say like a tank or a plane or a human being, and say now creatively just do whatever you want with it, make it up, mix things together, have some. Start with the idea, right? Just what comes to mind. If you're saying, well, I don't have any ideas, well, that becomes a bit of an issue, right? So how do I push more ideas? Well, you have to feed yourself more information. Oh, read more comics, watch more movies, play more games, go out there and look at a lot of things, a lot of art, right? Look at nature, pull from a lot of visual information and see if you can kind of mix and match things together, right? So creativity will stem from also being surrounded by more creative minds. Surround yourself with like-minded people, more experienced people, or even people that are working with you, and be able to share ideas, converse on things. Oh, what about this? And maybe you want to play with that idea and concept. It might inspire you, right? Be surrounded with that energy. Let's see. Art Apprentice saying I hyper focus on certain aspects of fundamentals because I've noticed most growth that way, such as turning a box in all views, but our harder practice is more beneficial. It feels easier. It feels easier. Is that bad? Um, well, it depends on what harder practices are you to you, right? Turning cubes and boxes are not always easy, but I would say application is where your next step should go if it's a more difficult action. Um, but is it just because it's easier? Is that bad? No, because even if it's easier to produce now, if you stop doing it for a long period of time, it'll become hard again because you don't just retain it permanently to the way you would actually practice. It erodes. Quality wise, control wise, understanding wise, you forget things. So you have to re-practice again a lot of times, right? But if you keep practicing it, things do get easier, but you maintain that to the point where it becomes so easy, it's secondhand nature. But yeah, again, the kind of harder practices would be application. Take a cube in a box, I don't know, make it something. Turn it into a building, make it a tank if you want it to be, right? This is what actually when it comes to tanks, I put this on my dynamic Bible years ago, and this is what Norm, my mentor, used to say about how to draw tanks. Uh, Tanks are actually easy to draw if you just know how to draw these things. If you know how to draw a shoebox, everybody here can draw a shoebox, right? I hope. It's got a little hole in there, a little paste sign. It's got a lid, and then we're going to put some tracks on it. So I think about like a rubber band with some wheels on it inside. Here's the track. Think about it like a rubber band. And on top, we put on a cake. You can draw a cake, I'm assuming, or a cupcake, right? And then on the side of the cake, we stick on a carrot. And I think you know how to draw a carrot. Here's the candles. With a little, kind of bushy vegetation and leaves coming out of the carrot. Now, if you know how to draw these components and pieces, basically you know how to draw a tank. Now, all you got to do is convert these things into mechanical structures, right? It's the idea that form and shape is really the key answer. You can find some kind of other analogy to help remember things, might help you. Here's a shoebox with a birthday cake being driven by a track with rubber bands and little wheels. So if you can't draw that, well, you certainly won't be able to draw this, right? Not a problem, our apprentice. Appreciate your time. Lameworks is saying, I've noticed a single term of taking a class isn't enough time to master anything. Absolutely. So I wonder if it's a better approach would be to expose myself to areas of interest as early as possible. Sure, to explore, to get an idea as what's out there, right? So as you start to explore those areas and routes, and as you continue with your education, you start to hone in on things. And some things have to be doubled up. I mean, I've taken classes at like an art center multiple times because a single time I took it, like you're saying, you don't harness all the information you want. And the first time you take a class, all you can really do is hold on. There's so much information being thrown at you, and you attempt it, you fail, you try, and some things you succeed, but you don't really have a full sense of control or confidence. So then I would have to come back and take a class again, which I've done in multiple type of classes. You know, sometimes I just did it because it was fun. Like dynamic sketching, the class that I teach right now, when it was taught by my teacher Norm, I took that class officially twice. I TA'd for him once after that, so I was with that class and with him for a full year. So term after term after term, I was in that class, and then it continued the year after that one also. And it wasn't until a year had passed that I felt relatively comfortable, not fully confident, just comfortable to be able to just do the things we're talking about. And so I was probably in my what, early 20s at the time. So I'm certainly no savant. I can't do these things just out of my head instantly. It takes a lot of repetition, tons of training, and some things I'm still not going to be that great at yet. But that's where I would want to be. Because in that, you're able to see others who are so much better than what you do. And it shouldn't scare you. It excites me because I was like, man, that's possible. I want to strive towards being that level also. I don't want to be that person, but I want to be able to have that same level of confidence, right? have it like dust and smoke being kicked around as it's rolling around the ground. Oh, and it's saying you're about to draw some mechs as well too. They are fun. Um, Stuff like Kara saying, what are your sources for live drawing in terms of references? Mostly online, but a lot of times I'm on location somewhere, right? Or I have stuff at home, model kits. I have insect in boxes, and stuff I just look at around me. But I definitely go to a lot of museums, different locations where if I said I want to go draw a tank, well, there's a museum down the street where I live that has tanks, so I go look at them. I take pictures of them. So I go to locations to see the real thing. Now I understand not everybody has that opportunity nor location. So whenever you get a chance to visit and travel, hopefully you'll find those things and really take advantage of them, right? If those of you are following along, sketching and drawing, not drawing what I'm drawing, but drawing your own thing, post about it later on. Share it, tag it, all that kind of stuff. That's what these kind of live streams should be, for us to just sit down and chat and draw and sketch. Some of you guys are even asking questions about like it, how many hours in a day should I draw, or how do I find the energy to just keep drawing on my own time after hours? You're here right now. You're here online with me, live streaming, and you could be drawing and sketching at the very moment. If you're not sketching right now, well, what else are you doing? Well, I'm just listening, watching, but you could be sketching. So it's in these kind of opportunities in which you could use to continue to bolster your skills and find that discipline to keep working. Raphael's asking, is there a difference in the application of line weight between organic forms and inorganic forms? Not really. Not in terms of line weight. Line weight generally, as a simple way of applying it, could be as simple as light direction. So if a light direction is coming from the top, line weight can go onto the bottom. Right here, light direction coming from the top, shadow play is going to the bottom side. Just contrasting it. As simple as that, right? Let's see if there's anyone else asking questions. JDZ is asking, do you think I'll ever do a Procreate iPad stream? I've done them before in the past. I haven't done stuff on iPads in a while, though. I don't know if you guys are interested. I'll show you next time. So it sounds like you really nailed the fundamentals, like it wasn't just one and done, but multiple exposures. Yes, absolutely. And then moving on to other directions. Is this right? Yes, in a certain amount of time, right? So in schools, universities, we had a 4-year period to do this, which also means that you're not going to be able to master everything, right? Some people are like, well, I want to be able to design, paint, draw figures, and draw animals and creatures and environments, because you can say, I have interest in all those things. But do you think in a 3 or 4 year period you can master all that stuff? Let alone even just one thing, right? Good luck. So for me, my strength was in drawing and sketching. I painted in school a lot, oil painting, acrylics, watercolors, gouache, and I enjoyed them. But I never really found myself to be the painter because I didn't see the world in light and color. I saw the world through line and shape and form. But I love painting still. But a lot of my friends who gravitated towards that direction, a lot of them didn't draw as much. They painted more. I drew more. I painted less. So I had my strengths and weaknesses, but I still can paint. I still enjoy it. I'm not as proficient as a lot of other people, but I like it, right? So that's the thing, is like you can only gain so much in the experience of the school you have. If you're going through education thinking that to be good enough, then all of a sudden I can work. But I have to master all these things. You're never gonna feel ready, right? Kata's drawing sharks today. Nice. What kind of shark? I like drawing sharks. By the way, as we get close to the end of this stream soon, tomorrow I will be back. We're gonna be doing another stream tomorrow on YouTube. So prepare for it, because if anybody wants to join, it'll be in the morning on my time, probably around 11 a.m. And I will be doing a live stream on YouTube that's going to be a community based drawing and sketching again. So I'm going to be using Magma Studio. I'll be inviting 5 people to sketch with me, and we'll be doing a live stream. Okay. Nana was then saying, now that you mentioned the difference between classes and a mentorship, how important would you say it is to have a mentor, to have someone who's experienced you can relate to your own? For me, it was invaluable, but there is no guarantee of you having one. Not everyone out there who works in the industry had the experience of having an actual mentor, which is unfortunate because it helped me immensely. So what do I do in that situation? If I don't have that, will I not make it? Of course not. Just because you don't have a mentor doesn't mean you're not going to have the potential of skill set to be able to actually get out there in the industry. But it does help quite a bit, because they're going to be able to give you the resource of information or experience and thought and advice and direction that can really help you overcome certain things, right? But the thing about the mentorship is that I have very specific mentalities and thoughts about what a mentorship truly is. I don't take it very lightly in terms of the idea of a mentorship, because I have a lot of experiences behind having instructors who mentored me, but I never asked for it. I was just very lucky and fortunate to meet people that were willing to give me their time. And not only just give me their time, it wasn't just about a teacher to student relationship, they became family. Norm, my mentor, was family to me. So when he was killed, it was very, very traumatic. And I became very close with his family, of his kids, his wife, and his extended family, and I'm still close to them today. And that's been over 12 years at this point, since his passing. But also, I have instructors I met during high school, and she was a language teacher. Her name was Akiko Irwin, and still to this day, I support her financially. And she was my high school language teacher. We became very close as friends. She was almost like a second mother in many ways, and she did a lot for me. And mentors don't come always as a place, a position that always assists you in the exact thing that you do. They're just people that can give you advice through life, right? So if you're looking for an art mentor, yeah, great. But mentorships can come from all walks of life. So if you're looking for such a narrow thing, you may not find it. You could have potentially had a mentorship, but didn't even consider it or even saw it. You just didn't see that person as that thing, and that's a missed opportunity, in my opinion. You know, um, so Mrs. Irwin, when I was in high school, I mean, I learned so much in life from her. She was such a driven woman. I mean, she worked so many different kind of jobs, and she was extremely giving. I mean, she made a lot of sacrifices in her life, and it's one of those things. I see that kind of thing in a person, and it's an example, right? And she was a teacher. She worked in a hospital. She played in bands, and she had all these different interests and art as well too. But she wasn't really an artist. But man, she really got involved in a lot of things, and so to this day, it's like I still chat with her, and that's since high school. That was over, 20 years ago. Um, my gosh, more than that. But but yeah, mentorships can matter. But as I said, it's not a thing where you sign up for this program in a class of a mentorship at a school. That's not the same thing. Those can help too. Okay, I'm not saying those can't help. I'm just saying that there's a difference between a true mentorship and then a guided paid experience, right? Not a lot of people I know have, true mentorship experiences. I would say a lot of my friends who grew up with me at Art Center probably did. Maybe because we had a lot of the same instructors and we all became friends in the same kind of way. Kata was saying you drew a hammerhead shark. That's great. Mariana was asking, can you balance academic drawing with fun stuff like drawing from the imagination? Of course, based on your interest and curiosity. you should make the time to do so. Sometimes you feel like you're stuck because I know that if I don't practice the more academic stuff, I won't learn to draw cool stuff. I don't agree with that. I think you can draw cool stuff even without the academic stuff. To you, it's not good because it's not technical or academic, because it's not using the set standard tool sets. But if you're just drawing loosely or ways you just want to in a creative way because it's just fun, who does tell you it's bad or good, right? If it's just something you really enjoy doing, that's for you only. And so you have to continue to produce things for you. But if you feel guilty saying that, I'm wasting time now, I shouldn't be drawing stuff I like, I got to do something more academically, kind of like in process, it'll suck the life out of you. And it will completely dishearten your approach towards the future about working in the creative field because it no longer is creative for you. Now it's just become another job. Don't do this, okay? Um, be comfortable saying that the things that you want to create for yourself are okay, because that's just as important as some of the actual academic approaches of technique in classes you want to take as well too. I went the approach of academic in the beginning. So being able to also incorporate later in life the things I really want to go for helped me rebalance things. But I know a lot of friends and people who don't. They stay in that side of job, academic, I gotta do my work, follow the rules. And it's no longer about me. I don't want to do it for myself. I just have to get paid. I gotta support my family, that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, they just go to that 9 to 5 job. And even though people can look at it from the outside, it's like, oh, you're making these really cool things. For them, they don't care anymore. You know? The I don't care starts to happen. Raja was asking for a beginner in art, what is a good roadmap to follow? There's a certain point in time in which a roadmap that you'd want to follow as a curriculum can take place. When that is all dependent upon your current situation, which I have no idea. But if it was to start from the very beginning, there should be no roadmap. There should be a discovery. So you just drive around looking for things, right? You take this class. I watch this video. I look at this book. I talk to that people. I go to these gallery shows. You expose yourself to the world of creative industries, and from that, you get introduced to new things you never even knew before, right? If you go to a school, you can say that I'm going to start within my programs of illustration, but then maybe I want to try and research a bit more of like, well, what's film? What about like fashion? What about industrial design, transportation? You might be surprised of how that industry is amazing, and you didn't even know it existed. Like, actually, that actually kind of sounds kind of fun. I want to do comics at first, but you know what? I want to try designing cars. You know, that could happen. For me, I wanted to do comics at first. Then I went to concept art and video games. I didn't know I could do video game concept art. I didn't know that industry existed. This is in 2001. 2000 is when I started Art Center. I was 20, 21 years old. During high school, I did comics. I knew there was like behind the scenes for film and games, and I played games, but I didn't know anything about the industry, right? So once I went to Art Center, being like, hey, you can have a job like this. It's like, what? And no one told me this. So then I switched my gears, right? Here's that cake again. Because Kata was drawing a hammerhead shark, I kind of want to draw a hammerhead that's all split up as well too. Hammerheads are fun, especially if you push the styling a little bit in proportion. Maybe we'll cut off the head. We'll separate it here. Have the body continue down this direction. We'll separate the fins. Do more splitting. Just because this sketch has no, actual further use and application. This is just a draw to have fun. So whatever you want to create, it doesn't even have to make actual sense. That's the beauty for drawing for what you want to draw. It can be whatever you want it to be. If you're unable to just let go and just sketch because it's just fun to do, man, you're gonna have a hard time in the future in the world of art and design. I've been down that path of working for a company where I would, come into an office and 10 a.m. and then I'll work all day drawing, designing stuff, and then, 6 p.m. I leave and then I go home and I barely remember the day, you know, and I'm working on stuff that I don't like. I don't even have interest to. I'm using my skill sets, but it's like I'm creating things for somebody else. And it's not really for me anymore, and so I really don't care. Um, and it grinds because I work on a game for like 3 years straight. First year's like really fun. It's all pre-production, new work, but then all of a sudden it's like you just have to like now draw stuff, paint stuff. That thing's just kind of finalization. That's not interesting anymore. So I've been in that kind of experience, and I'm glad I left. You know, but a lot of people and friends that I know don't. They go to another company if they get fired or let go, and it's a merry-go-round. It's just the kind of the way it works. But at the same time, there are some people that thrive in that. Creatively, they need that kind of environment, some kind of structural corporate nature environment that they can use to grow their skills in. That's how they see the return. I don't. You know, we use a line weight to help separate these two pieces from the shark to the isolating floating tank pieces. Line weight to help separate. And I'm not going to push a lot of darks and hatching on the shark. We're just going to leave it very light like this. So that it's always kind of in the background. Sage is saying you've done some of your best work drawing randomly. That's how you know when you try too hard, the stress comes out in your work. Absolutely. When you try to control it too much, it never really works in your favor. Stanley's asking, am I going to paint this also? No. We're just going to draw. Um, Dave, in terms of like certain players that I follow, what sport? What you're saying? Like because I'm mostly following NBA and NFL right now. Um, if it's an NBA stuff, it's any of the players from the Blazers, mainly Dame right now to Simons and this new kid, Shaden is pretty amazing. NFL wise, I'm following the Chargers because I grew up in San Diego for 7 years. Not grew up, but lived there. Um, and I followed the Chargers with the Rivers times, but right now they're doing amazing in LA. Well, not amazing, good with this new kid Justin Herbert. He's killing it. Evolution is saying you have a general understanding of perspective, anatomy, and mechanical elements. I love drawing from the imagination, especially mechs, people, and medieval figures. What should I draw, practice next? Um, Drawing those things are great, and you have the understanding perspective and anatomy at the fundamental level. Practice on being able to move things in space really well. Okay, it doesn't even have to be in full detail, but being able to articulate the camera and unique angles should be one of the main fundamental practices also. Okay, design can come after that. Design fundamentals. How do I design and problem solve and create things, right? So as you go to the fundamentals of anatomy, mechanical structures, and observational drawing, turning things in space is a crucial aspect of your practice. Then going into the idea of creation design in certain applications of things. Not a problem, JDZ. Appreciate the comment and thanks for the sub. Stage 7, I wish I had time to keep up with current sports. You have an extensive collection of Kobe and Jordan cards. Nice. Very nice. I don't really have a lot of Kobe stuff. I have a lot of Jordan cards. I wish I had more stuff from Kobe. How do you develop harder skin being in the art industry? I mean, just putting yourself in the line of fire, right? And then over time, you start to kind of harden that skin. But I think for sure, being in a school that kind of has that harsh environment really does do it too. You know, that's the only unfortunate thing of being in an online class or experience is that you don't really get that sort of like, you know, kind of pushback intensity of an environment that really takes you to those limits, especially when it comes to like deadlines and feedback and criticism and all that kind of stuff. The social aspects of it within people. Being in a school kind of gives you the early precursor exercise before you go to the industry, right? Raphael's saying your most productive year was one you had no internet access. You know, how do you deal with or isolate yourself from distractions? Well, I don't try to go away from them, honestly. You know, I like to harness them, if anything else. Yeah, I partake in many of them. It doesn't necessarily take away my quality of what I produce in my work or even the time to be able to put into it. Balance is everything. So, you know when you got to work, you do the work. And you know when you have the time to do the other things you want to do that are considered distractions, you give it those times also. Because to me, they're just as important. What you would call distraction, I would call my hobbies, right? Opening basketball cards today may seem like a waste of time for some people, but I have a lot of entertainment coming from that. So for me, I gain a lot. So Jay Decker is saying, when practicing turning things around in space for drawing, would you recommend using 3D models or by using your imagination? Use actual visual observation. Okay, and start with the most basic of things. Again, for instance, if I took this package of this basketball cards and I said, okay, I'm going to draw this cube from this angle of view. All right. Now I said I'm going to turn the angle of view, and I said now I took away that box and I said draw that cube for me from a different angle. Saying, well, I'll try to, and it seems easier because it's a cube. But if I said now take this other object, let's say it's going to be I don't know, some kind of vehicle. Or, here, I have a controller. Okay, this controller, I'm going to have you draw it from this angle. Now I'm going to take away the reference, and I want you to draw this controller again from a different angle of view. If you're saying, well, I don't know what that looks like from the other side. Of course you don't. So you should be looking at the reference or that same material and change the angle of view. And draw from that one, draw from this side, draw from that side. As you harness all that information and experience over time, some of those things start to stick and they become a bit more of a long-term memory. And you're able to kind of harken back to it and pull from it and use it anytime you want to. You might think, well, it seems like I have to do a lot of that practicing for many things. It's true. It takes a long time to build that kind of accrued information. But you'll start to find patterns and archetypes. It's a whole other thing. Let's go to the bottom section over here. Actually, you know what? Let's do a quick sketchbook tour. We're at about 2 hours in right now. So we drew a tank, exposed tank, and a couple of things in there. This is the other side of this accordion drawing. This is the full side. A lot of people have seen this one already. The accordion piece that starts off, from these observational drawings and also imagined drawings. So a lot of stuff is, imagination. But then I also do observation. These pieces right here in the middle of the head portrait studies are based on actual paintings and sculptures at the museum. I drew them live. And I took those and we did the werewolf thing, which you guys saw last time. And then we did the bird, and the bird head study, the skull we did from observation. And then I created the bird, or drew from memory. And I designed the dragon out of it. And from that dragon, I ended a piece with this one. I'm still working on this one. Another kind of like crazy demon dragon thing. And then we flipped it to the side, which is where we just did this tank piece. But some people wanted to see this, this book here, which I've shown before, but I don't mind showing it again. Sage7, you're saying you just bought a box of the Marvel 1990 cards. I think you're going to leave it sealed for years. Is it Series 1 or Series 2? If it's 1990, that must be Series 1 Marvel, right? Because those go for a crazy amount of money right now. I have a Series 2 box that's sealed behind me. I've opened two boxes of those before. I used to buy those ones when I was younger, the original cards back in the 90s. So this particular book, if you haven't seen it before, is a very particular sketchbook. It goes into this little bit of world building and a bit of a journal that goes through an adventure. So I'll just show you a little bit of this. Just reading a couple comments here. John Albert's asking if the focal point is in the far distance, should the focal point have less details than the other objects that are closer? Yes, less detail. So I use atmospheric perspective as a general kind of like understanding of how to control my objects in drawings and sketches. Closer to me, I would refine the contrast and information in detail with much more clarity. As things get further away into the distance, they become more not isolated, become smaller and also lighter in terms of information, lower in contrast also. Obviously, it requires far distance to be able to have the gases make the effect of atmospheric perspective. In singular objects, it doesn't really apply, but we're forcing that to give it that sense of depth, essentially. So this book is a book that I picked up. I don't remember exactly where. The brand of this one is called Kunst and Papier. So here's the brand, and it's made in Germany or Austria. I bought this book in Denmark. I'm sorry, in Austria. That's where I bought it from. I was in Austria in Graz a couple of years ago, and I found this at one of their art stores in Graz. So I'll read this quote here. This one I found. This is from a guy named J.G. Wood. It says, so in the study of living beings, it is necessary to adhere to some determinate order, or the mind becomes bewildered among the countless myriads of living creatures that fill earth, air, and water. I just thought it was an interesting quote. So this book follows one guy, and his name is Larut An. And basically, I treat this as if it's his personal journal. So here he kind of drew himself, and he drew all the little props of what he has and owns. And from this, he documents his travels to this island. And so this book is basically a fictional natural history book that gathers the flora and the fauna of this island. And I just make it up as I go. And all these creations are things of experiences of stuff that I may have seen of animals or locations or things that I've watched in movies or documentaries. A lot of it is very much on location experiences, you know? So here we have his transport. This is what he flew in. And he landed on this island. And these are some of the actual things that he's seeing. And I write down all these notes about what he's observing. So I go into this is a little temporary camp he's made. This is 3 months. Solar charge lamps, little products that I'll make. And this is the map of this is the location of where he landed. And this is now the pathway in which one wants to follow. Either going west to then north into the mountainscape. This is the first couple animals he's seen now. The local seabirds, living off the sea cliffs by the camp. And I continue to show more of what he's experiencing. You start to see the death of the animals. What caused the death of this animal? You notice these little small weird bug things. Main hooks, possible parasite, latches onto these birds, feeds off of them. And then collecting more specimens by the water. Little crabs and shellfish or insects and sea fleas and that kind of stuff. And I give them all names. And this one's a shield crab, a jumping melon, ears. This one's a little brush, the digger, long finger, the kite. And then there's different travels of location. This is his main camp. This is where he's going to the open plains. This is the forest area that he saw on the map. And these are the animals he's seeing along the way. Different plants. The first large mammals he's seen. Call this the crosshorn. Watching the bucks bang heads. They must be in the rut. Various birds everywhere. The golden arrow, deadleaf, different sort of shapes. You couldn't see them up close. You just kind of drew a little simple sketch of it. Different kind of animals, rock formations, set of scale. This thing is called the devil horn. Other kind of reptiles he's seen. The rock jumpers. Lightning rod is what they call this one. Noticing something unique where the rock formations begin to move. As I got closer to them, you start to see the organic material in between the rocks. And you start to see them come out of the ground. These giant behemoths, call them the giant rock tick for scale. Gentle giants. Moving on. Continue to travel that lasts for days and months. Different sort of plants. This is a carnivorous plant. How it catches these kind of birds. This is a younger one being caught, twists and turns it into spiral, encapsulates it, uses little hooks to digest the prey. Different sort of insects. This is a polyphenism structure. So it's got a base structure which can be readapted for a different functional purpose. Cutters, transporters, much like ants. Ants are polyphenism structures. Red palm apes, the first mammal apes. More primates, different sort of pup tents that he has, the case, how it's put together, intricate details of how you secure the pins. So I go into all the elements of like the props and the animals and the flora and the fauna, the landscapes, how he uses it, where he's going, scale information, different sort of angles. It's a journal collected based on this world that doesn't really exist, but exists in my mind. Scary looking animal. I don't know how I imagined this one, but I call this one the tree stalker. Gigantic in scale. It's from a top view, but these things climb through the canopies of the trees, but they're harmless. They suckle upon these little trapped sap drippings on the trees. This is the metamorphosis. So this is the early pupae state, or larva state, you can say. First predator, the skull cat, crown skull cat. So you'll notice then, design-wise, within the world, I'm trying to also relate this kind of hard shell encasing. So I don't want the animals to all feel separate. I want there to be some form of relationship between them. This hard shell head piece, the skull. A lot of rocky structures. But I wanted to bring that in a little bit to this predatorial animal. Some fruits. These are all, this is from based on inspiration of visual. This is a tree that I have in my backyard. It's a strawberry tree, and the plant has a fruit that looks like this. So I just kind of manipulated a little bit of it. More fish. Now we're now on the east side of the island. So the character went from the west side across the plain into the trees on the east side now, and this is where we found that predatorial animal, which we're going to avoid. So he wants to turn north. Use some of the fish he caught. I made a little fishing rod design, scorpion rod. Local tarantulas. This one he actually kept in a casing. I'm going to remember that one, so he's going to keep it on him. Didn't resist accepting enclosure. This is with scale. This was inspired by my own tarantula. Another large mammal. This one's called the snowpatch. Youth, older. This is at a time when I was visiting Yellowstone, and I was seeing a lot of the baby animals, the bisons and whatnot. Here's another look at the island. This was where we came from. This is where we landed. This is where the campsite. This is the open plain where we saw the cross horns. The predatorial animals, it says dangerous territory. This is where they exist. This is where we were fishing. I'm going to go through the islands up this direction. Local people. The first sign of life, of culture. First contact with the indigenous. Crosshorn. Watching them from a distance, no real interaction. Just watching what they do day to day. Fishermen, hunters. The crosshorn seems to be one of their main inspirations. A lot of the local, intricate little things that they have. Statue pieces, sculptures, jewelry. Finding it on the ground, collecting it. Signs of an old culture. Shaman, from a distance you're seeing them. This is just a local meal that he was making for himself as he camped. Gathering some of the fish and the fruits and whatnot. Seeing burial sites where the shaman taking up the role in the mantle generationally. You'll start to see the way they're set up. The tomb sites have these leftover mummified bodies of the shaman, and they're in circular around this fire. And so they're the past shamans. Then another local animal. This one I call the sweet tooth. Another insect. This is a fishing stag beetle. It's got these elongated mandibles that shoot out. And that's it. So right now, we are about a little bit more than halfway through the book. So I'm going to fill up the rest of this with even more documentation, and things will start to get a little bit, hopefully, journey-wise, a bit hectic and precarious. Because right now, most of this has just been exposure to the daily, things on this island. But right now, where he is about here. This is where he found that culture. And so now, as he goes into the mountainscapes, things will become a bit more treacherous. Come across some more maybe dangerous animals. And from there, we'll see what happens. So I want there to be written notes of his adventure that goes through it, which could also be dangerous in those situations, and how he hopefully can get back to his campsite and leave on his plane. So we'll see where it goes. Will there be machines? I don't know. Probably not. Most likely just mostly organic kind of stuff. But it's an interesting thought. Is there some kind of machinery and mech work? I don't want to do too much on that. I'll probably keep it very kind of organic. But I'm thinking of what's going to be up here. I don't know yet. Into the mountains. I'm thinking maybe he has more interactions with the people there. Maybe, maybe not. But most of the stuff, I just make it up page to page. So there's no set plan. I'm not writing this stuff in a whole, kind of document. It's pretty much me as if I'm actually in the place of the character on the island and imagining, oh, what am I seeing next? Ooh, that's a good one. Suggestion, Vanzer. An old crash site. But why? What crashed it? What destroyed it? Was it just an accident? Was it something else? Those are the kind of things that are fun. And it could be anything. So we're about halfway through. Question is, am I going to print this book? Well, that is the plan. I don't know if there's interest to have people buy it, but that is the plan. And when I actually put it together, I want to be able to print it as if it looks like an actual journal, right? So I want a lot of the handwritten notes in here. I don't know what I'm going to do about the other side. I'll probably just print it where it's on both sides, essentially. I'm drawing on one side in this book because as I draw on one side and I go to the other, the paper can buckle and it can also come through. So when I scan this stuff, it's really hard to clean up. So it's best for me to draw on one side only, which is why I'm doing that. So, into the future, if I do produce this book, I most likely will self-publish it. It'll most likely be like a Kickstarter. I've had interest from a friend who is a publisher that wants to make a book with me no matter what. He mentioned a sketchbook, but I mentioned to him, I was like, hey, what do you think about maybe a different kind of book, like a journal? And I was going to mention this book to him. So we'll see how much interest he has in maybe making it with me. But I first have to get the whole book done. So right now, I'm about halfway through. I would say it's going to take me about another, when I get back into it, really start, this will be another couple months, I'd say, once I really get into it again. My nephew drew that for me. His Pikachu. Anyways, let's see. Thank you for all the ideas and comments and thoughts. It helps in terms of having the encouragement and also, just the interest behind these kind of things. Because at the end of the day, this book I'm just making it for me. I just find it fun to do. So if I can have other people have access to it in terms of me publishing a book, I very much consider it. But even if I don't, I'll still be working on it and sharing it on social media, right? Ooh, that's an idea too, Panzer. They're like the descendants from the crash site. Man, you got some good ideas. You should make your own book. I won't borrow from them from you, and if I do, I will credit you. Some person saying 3D Total has a sketching from the Imagination series. That might be interesting. Actually, I was in one of them earlier. Some person very early many years ago when they first started doing the sketching from the Imagination. I was in one of the books. Trying to see if there's anything else question-wise here. Crash site from space, some kind of alien thing, maybe, yeah. A survival game, yeah, exactly. Okay, all right. So it's been about 2 hours and 20 minutes. We did some card openings, we did some sketching, we did some sketching book explorations. Tomorrow I will be doing another live stream around 11 a.m. my time. And in that situation, I'm going to be doing a drawing session live with a number of people. It will be a first come, first serve situation. So if anybody's interested in drawing with me on Magma Studio, you're going to need to have a tablet or a Cintiq to draw with me. And that's if you join. Okay, so we'll see how many interests of people come into play. Um, like right now, I don't know how many people are even watching. There's about 100 people right now, which is okay. That's a pretty good number of people, you know. And tomorrow we will definitely will draw more. Okay, so tomorrow should be straight nothing but drawing and sketching digitally on Magma Studio. Whoever those 5 people will be, like I said, it'll be first come first serve. If you're interested in joining in with me, again, 11 a.m. will be the start time, and I'll announce it on my social media and on stories on Instagram, and you will have to reply on that. Okay, so if you don't follow me on Instagram, Peterhanstyle, when I post a story, um, you will then have to just reply to the story saying I'm interested, and the first 5 people I lock in. After that, I shut down the stories, and hopefully people will join me. Okay, where am I seeing streaming from? On YouTube. So you're gonna watch it on YouTube. So tomorrow on Friday will be the next session. Okay. All right, guys. Well, thank you again. I will see you all hopefully tomorrow and into the future and the next day. And we'll do more of these card openings as well too. If you have interest in me opening cards, I'll keep going for it. Time zone wise, it's Pacific time, 11 a.m. Pacific time, because I'm in LA. All right, cool. Thank you guys. I will see you next time. Appreciate it.